Welcome everybody to Leading Change, a workshop for nonprofit leaders. And we are, I'm going to introduce a little bit about the center. Many of you already know us, but we have three primary areas of focus: our advocacy, our education, and we provide benefits to our members, discounts on everything that we do, and a variety of other services, including our Member Mondays and some members only events. Education, such as this webinar, is a primary focus. We have materials on our website. We have referrals. We can help you with referrals to professionals that provide services for nonprofits. And our help desk is available best by email. We also are advocates in Trenton and in Washington. The center is very active, representing the interests of nonprofits in Trenton and in Washington, D.C., along with our partners from the National Council of Nonprofits. And as you can see, there are state associations of nonprofits all over the country. We have a wonderful, very supportive network. And anywhere you are, or if you have colleagues that are in other states, remind them that they do have that option of the advantage of contacting their local state association for nonprofits. I'm going to pass this along. Oh, wait a minute. I've got one more slide, don't I? We have our presenters today, Brigid Lang and Yvette Murry, who are both with YRM Consulting. They've done trainings for us and for many other people for a long time. And this is the third in the series that they're presenting this spring for the center, looking at leading change as things are changing right under our feet as we speak. So I'm going to introduce Yvette and Brigid, and let you guys take over the show.
Thanks, Deb. So
let me set up the deck.
Okay. My name is Yvette Murry. I've been working in nonprofits for about 30 years, and we have a really wide net, both domestically and abroad. And we're really excited about this particular workshop in this particular moment. And Brigid, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Brigid Lang here. I have a long history of working in nonprofits, doing just about anything, from administrative assistant, volunteer manager to executive director, and a whole bunch of change management experience and working with boards. So I'm delighted to be here today.
So let's get started. Just a little bit of information about what we do. We actually partner with nonprofits to strengthen their impact. You can go to the next slide, Bridge.
Sorry. Yep.
Okay. So some of the services we provide are training and coaching on leadership and organizational development, cultural belonging and the employee experience, retention, well-being programs, which right now are essential, volunteer and stakeholder management. We work around governance with boards, and also we provide, as in this case, workshops, and both on-site and remotely, because we're remote right now. So today's agenda, why change matters? Why does change leadership matter? We'll then be talking about principles for leading change. We'll be engaged in a case study in the latter part of the training, and reflection and strategies. Just so you know, you'll all get a copy of the deck. You also, when we do the case study, will actually get all the responses that people had. So that way, when you go back to your office, you'll actually have the ideas of 20 other people in addition to your own. Next slide. All right, Bridget, you want to take this one?
Yeah. So we just wanted to lay a little bit of what our commitment to you is and what we think collectively we strive for, which is to share time and space, to listen, to understand, not specifically to give pointed advice, but to use your own experience and share using I statements. Again, we want people who are here to feel comfortable to share what they choose to share. And with that, that means that we ask you to hold confidential someone's story and let the learning or knowledge come with you. And then please practice self-care. It's so important this time of extraordinary change that we don't know what's coming next. Self-care is how we're going to get through it. Anybody want to add anything here to this? Just feel free to come off mute.
I think we're good.
Okay.
So what brought you today to this workshop? And you can either put it in the chat or you can put it, or just take yourself off mute. What brought you to this workshop? What are your hopes for the workshop?
Well, change is hard. And right now, we've all have to really, take a good look at what's going on and what we can expect for the next year. And I feel like from my own perspective, you get very comfortable in your routines and what you do on a daily basis and your development plan. And that's great, but it can't work into perpetuity. So, you have to be ready to change. And I want to know what everybody else is doing. So just to share that information and, collaborate a little bit.
Thank you. Other folks, what brought you here today? Because all of us are overwhelmed. All of us have too much to do and not enough time.
Yvette, do you want me to take this down for a moment?
Yes, please. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. And if you're off camera, I'm going to really encourage you to be on camera. One of the challenges that we face is human beings need to connect with each other, and remote is a way for us to do that when we can't be in person with each other. And one of the things we know from social scientists is that when you're actually able to see someone, you're able to take that information in a very different way. And it also builds relationship. Other reasons people came today.
So Yvette,
Yep.
there's some comments in the chat. One is that Susan, I don't know if you want to speak to it, but your organization is going through a lot of change.
Yeah, and you have a new
They have a new CEO and the staff is changing. Yep.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm having some connectivity issues.
No worries, Susan.
So I'm kind of in and out. That's why.
Okay.
But yeah, we're going through a change in leadership at our organization, and there's a lot of unknowns, and I do know the interim CEO very well, and I'm very excited. It's just how to support the staff through it, and just, how I can be supportive of the change as well. So I look forward to hearing from the experts, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Then we have Jay, who mentioned that you do strategic planning. Do you want to talk about that and that your clients are grappling?
Yeah. So we do strategic planning work, and we're finding that sort of traditional methodologies don't serve our clients when things tend to change like in unpredictable ways. Strategic planning in the past is based on let's try and predict some scenarios and figure out what we're going to do, and that doesn't apply. So I think organizations are trying, we encourage them to change their relationship to change. In other words, instead of trying to fear it or anticipate it. Just embrace it as a opportunity, build it in to your culture as a core competency, et cetera. And so I think strategic planning is really just a means of getting to a change, a different perspective and a different attitude around change and change management and how to adapt to it and how to stay aligned with your mission when it occurs all around us.
Yeah.
I remember when I came into the field, we were doing 5-year strategic plans, and then it went to 3-year strategic plans, and now we're like, what are we doing next week? So just the horizon of what our plans are have really changed it from, again, over the years, and being able to do that pivot is really important. Let's see, Kelsey stepped into a new organization about a year ago, trying to navigate the shift of mindset and culture while also trying to provide support in the middle of large ambiguity.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And-
Liz, ongoing need for mindset change to embrace the marriage of clinical and business approach in a behavioral health nonprofit, preparing for the coming year, years to follow with current administration. Liz, I'm actually a clinical social worker, and this is something we talk about a lot, that we're busy doing for others, and where do we build our own capacity so that we don't burn out? You want to make any other comments on that, Liz?
But even just, we have lots of great clinical leaders. So really, having that space in your brain to look not only at the clinical aspects of what's needed, but the business aspects. Are people doing what they do or need to be doing? Of course, are we caring for ourselves? But, trying to find a balance to have them not be their staff's therapists and providers, right? And reminding that, leaders in the field need to also have that balance of business and mindset and production and development. What's next? What else do you want to do? How do we want to improve? How do we want to grow? So that, just simple stuff, right? No, it's not challenging or complicated in any means, yeah.
Well, sometimes the thing that's not complicated or challenging is actually the most complicated and challenging.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It was definitely, definitely ingest. It's, I know it's a complicated, especially, a big mindset approach for new leaders who were really good at what they did. So that's how they got to where they are.
Great. Thanks, Liz. Brigid, you want to put the deck back up?
Sure. 1 second.
So one of the things we know is that the only constant is change. Kind of sounds a little, and that as leaders, we set the emotional tone throughout the change process. So if we're freaked out, other people are going to be freaked out. So as we approach this, we really need to have a sense of how does my energy impact other folks' energy? I know when I was working at a university, I had staff, and one day one of my staff members said, "Okay, you have to close your door because you're just driving everyone nuts." Like, I haven't spoken to anyone. You're like, well, you're putting off anxious energy. And I just wasn't aware of it. And then I had to do some checking in with myself to figure out what did I need to do so that I wasn't creating harm for my staff. And then effective change leadership. So both what is our mission and how do we impact? And right now, for many of you, the impact in your communities has become really challenging because those funding sources, you may be losing programs, you need to adapt programs, and then how resilient is the team? Next one, Bridge. Thanks. So there are a number of global forces that are at play right now. One is AI. I encourage you to any workshop you can go to on AI can be really helpful. I know that there is a workshop that was done by Gathering Ground on A, and it was absolute, and nonprofits, and it was excellent. And that workshop is posted on their website through their Facebook link. Turnover, employee engagement. For some of us, when we're under stress, we just sort of go underground because it makes it a little easier. And how do you make sure people are able to stay engaged? The constant change, again, we're getting this daily, sometimes multiple times in one day. Burnout, our ability to be adaptable, that our systems are not set up to have to navigate this constant shift. Very often, it's like that notion of, the saber-toothed tiger, am I going to be eaten? And unfortunately, that's becoming part of our daily. Will I have a job next week? Will my program, be there next week? The evolving of our technology, our hybrid or remote work, the critical role that you play, and also the critical role of other folks, because we have to remember that leadership is not just a person has leadership title, that there are a lot of other people leading in the organization, and their energy too is really important. How to retain folks in this environment. And then finally, how do we actually work to improve performance? And depending on where you are, performance improvement may be being able to just stay where you are. That might be the performance improvement, is helping people to be able to stay where they are and working at their highest level. Performance improvement also is building career ladders and skill ladders for folks. So you want to go to the next?
So how this works is that the words that get the most, that are mentioned the most, are bigger letters. So what we're seeing here is uncertainty as really high on the list. Unpredictability.
Lack of accountability. So,
Yeah. Insecurity, instability.
trust.
Yeah. I think, and betrayal, trust and betrayal are interesting ones in change. I'm curious if anybody wants to share about what they think, what happens that people feel betrayed. Or how does that come about? Anybody want to give it a shot?
I didn't write the word, but when I think of that, I think of, we just had a recent partner who lost funding, and they were waiting on back payment, but they were told by the government that they would not receive payment for services provided from January to April. So there's a betrayal of a funder.
Right. Okay. Yep. I think that in New York City, I want to say, I don't know if anybody saw the New York Times article that said that New York City owes $1 billion to nonprofits in back payment. And so they rely on the nonprofit sector to provide services and require the nonprofit sector to provide services and then don't pay over years worth of time. It's yeah. So anybody else want to comment on any of this?
I'm curious, what are the things that keep you up at night?
Yeah.
You're going to take that down, Brigid?
Yeah.
Okay. What are the things that keep you up at night?
Well, I mean, I'm responsible for raising the money that supports this organization. And if we can't do that, some people may lose their jobs. I mean, I know it's not entirely on my shoulders. We have an executive director who works really hard too, but you know, with everything that's going on right now, and we're a food security and housing security program. We have two of those programs under our umbrella, and with all of the cutbacks in funding, we get food from a government funded agency where the value of the food that we get from them is worth $1.2 million worth of food. We would never be able to replace that. So I worry about not being able to keep our organization running and keep our staff employed.
Yeah.
And one of the things I mean, unfortunately, if things continue as they are, we know at least 30% of nonprofits will not survive this. COVID really took a hit. We took a hit, and also now with this. So thinking about, again, that pivot, are there other organizations that you might be able to meld with? That may be something that needs to be on the table sooner rather than later. And while, we all want our own nonprofit, there's just no way. And as you talked about it, I know that there was a conversation about food security, and I was texting actually the CEO of NorWestCap, Mark Valley. We were all in a text together, and I saw something saying that there was going to be an issue around the farmers being able to give the fruits and vegetables to food pantries. And at 9:00 at night, Mark said, "Oh, well, this isn't impacting us. This is what we do." And in less than 12 hours, it was like, "Oh my God, this is us." So what's going on is really impacting everyone. And so I'm curious, what else keeps you up at night?
Hi, Yvette. This
Hey,
is
Susan.
Susan Ford again. I was just thinking, we're a CAP agency and we have many programs underneath, and one of them that is on the chopping block is the home energy assistance
Yep.
program, and that
Mhm.
is devastating to the community. We have so many families who use that program and keep their heat and their, energy going. So I don't see how, because, there are some people who rely on it as part of their living, and they're not going to have any time to plan to pivot in any direction. They're just not going to have lights in their house. And, it's very, very hard to imagine life without these crucial programs. And I think that's what keeps me up at night, is how we are able to help these vulnerable populations of people and move forward in this administration.
Yeah, Susan, the point you make is really important. And also to understand that, one of the things we've been talking about forever is that in our field, we are under resourced as far as our staff. Our staff are not paid a lot in relationship to the private sector. And some of our staff are going to become our clients. And what does that look like? How are folks, how do folks manage that? I was with another CEO last week, and they had gotten some information about some severe budget changes right before the Easter break, or whatever you call your break, spring break. And they just decided, you know what? No one needs to go home with this information for 4 days. I have it. I don't need to push this on anyone else. Let them just enjoy the weekend, because there's nothing any of us can do. So also when we think about you as a leader, is also when you share, how you share information and when you share information, because that's going to have an impact. Because one of the things that does happen is very often people are like, "Oh, we have to let folks go." How you let people go absolutely impacts the culture of your organization. If someone comes in and it's like, "Okay, you got to go, here's a box," everyone else sees that and says, "What the heck is going to happen to me?" So information is really important. Bridge, you want to go to go, Bridge?
I just want to add that I'm reminded that when in the pandemic and we shut down, I'm curious about what we learned or what we did at that time when we could not, like, there's something about collective impact, that when services were shut down, how did you start to reopen and provide services to those that you serve? And is there something that we can pull forward from what happened then to what's happening now in this continually shifting environment?
I'm curious, have any of you gone back to your, if you're getting philanthropic dollars, have any of you gone back and said to them and said, you know what, can we use this money in a different way? Because one of the things we are seeing from the philanthropic side is that people are asking that. And those are questions they asked during COVID, and very often they got a yes. And now what we're seeing is that people are getting no's. And that your funders may not have a full understanding of what you're dealing with on the ground, as well as your board may not have a really good grasp of what's going on. Next slide. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is emotional intelligence. You know, it's sort of nice to look at a little sheet, and, you know, in the past we've looked at this and gone, oh, okay, we can do this. What I would like you to do right now is to put your hand on your chest. Put your hand on your chest. And just notice in your body, how is your body feeling right now? Do you have tightness? Or are there parts that feel relatively supple? And if you have a part of your body that's feeling particularly tight, move your hand to that place on your body. If you have a part that's particularly tight. And I want you to imagine that in that space where your hand is, that it's starting to get warm. That your hand's bringing warmth to that space. And now I want you to imagine your hand, it's warm, it's in that place where you're feeling tension. And I want you to imagine the tension starting to dissipate, that it's almost starting to break up. And envision the tension breaking up and dissipating. So was there anything folks noticed by bringing attention to that place where there may have been a good deal of tension? How many of you were able to identify a place of tension? Okay. Is that your normal place of tension? Yes. So tell me some of the places in your collective body that you are feeling tension. And you can you can put it in the chat.
I feel tension in my neck.
In your neck. Okay. Bridge, can you take this slide down for a minute?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So we have the jaw, shoulders. In the shoulders, where on the shoulders? Because we have there's a lot that goes with the shoulders. Any particular part of the shoulders? Upper back. Mm-hmm. So in the back side of your shoulders. Yeah. So one of the things that's really important as we think about change is how we process it ourselves. How do we navigate change in our own bodies? And once we have a sense of that self-awareness, that's sort of where the emotional intelligence begins. I'm going to put the slide back up, Rich. Okay, so I'm not going to go in the order they have them. So the first one is self-awareness. You got to know you. If you know that we're working with a client now, and what's happening is they're not aware of how they're showing up, and what they're doing is they're boxing their staff in. That their anxiety has made their staff really anxious, and the staff feels like they have no control because the ED needs to have all the control in order for her system to actually be calm. So it's important we know, how do we show up, and ask the people around you, ask your family, your friends, what is it like when I'm stressed out? What do you notice about me? And you may be surprised at some of the answers. So first is the self-awareness, that I know I have to show up, and how am I showing up? And it's important. This is not just for you as a leader, but it's also to give this to the team. There are times that stuff's happening where we start to move into self-regulation, and I just want to scream. That's what I want to do. I just want to scream. Giving people the ability to say, you know what? Sometimes you just can't have that conversation in that moment. Take a walk, actually, and this is a time you really want to encourage people to have their lunch, to take a break for their lunch, to take that pause. Because whatever they're doing in that 15, 20, 30 minutes is the world's not going to end. But when our staff is not able to self-regulate, then they have their energy that goes on to their other team members and also into the community. The next thing we have to think about is our social skills. Some of us like to be, and especially in New Jersey, can be very, caustic. We can be very snarky, some of us. And other folks just may not be up for that. So what are your social skills, and making sure that everyone is being acknowledged, not just some folks. And then what is the motivation for your messages to your team? And it's really important what the motivation is. Just because you're stressed out doesn't mean everyone needs that information. What is information that is really necessary for folks? And that's information is going to directly impact their job and also their home lives. If I might not get a paycheck, I need to know that, when you know that. And then finally, having empathy, that in this time, many of our staff members, many of our clients are dealing with situations that just are unimaginable. Many of us work with undocumented populations and have people who are just spirited away and no one knows where they are or what happened to them. Someone who's not able to access LIHEAP and being able to make sure their lights are on and their heat's on. There was something this morning where in the president's budget, there's a cut for all after-school programming and all summer programming. And many of our staff are using those things in order to be able to show up. So really thinking through and having conversations that if your staff meeting is all about, all right, this is what we need to do. These are the things. You take that down for a minute, Bridge.
Yeah.
Thanks. If your meetings consist of task, the first task needs to be wellness. That's the first task, because if I am unwell, the rest of it can't happen. So checking in during your staff members, how are folks doing? And the answer fine and well are not answers. Really, or what are you doing for your own self-care so that they understand that that's important to you. And self-care is more important now than ever. So I'm going to go to the next one, Bridge.
Yes. Oops. I'm I have something I want to add here. I think it's important to remember that these are stressful times and stress reactions. We're seeing rapid change on a national scale that is unsettling, whatever your political views are, and that it threatens people's livelihoods, their ability, their core needs. And so how you can respond from a stress place, or you can look to how you can take care of yourself even on a 1 minute, 10-minute basis, which can help you to self-regulate. Just want to say that, and give yourself some grace here. These are hard times, and they're going to get more difficult. All right. So we want you to consider that one's viewpoint is important, but it's also important to look at the whole picture. Your perspective is important. Someone may, and as you consider change and what you're going to do with change, just consider that my perspective is not the only one, and how you get yourself, how you can walk yourself off the ledge to be able to see other perspectives, again, speaks to self-care.
And it also speaks to that in some of our organizations, we're very siloed, and how do we start to unpack that siloed feeling? And also that you're not the only person that has to have the answer. That, bring other folks in to develop that answer, bring your team members in to see, if they have ideas of how you might begin to proceed. So here are some of the core actions. I want to ask that, because you're getting ready to go into groups. So someone may want to take a picture of this with their camera. We're going to put it in the chat as well, but that way you'll have it. So the first thing that you have to decide is, where are we now? Where are we in this moment? What's working? And I strongly encourage you to come from an asset-based perspective. What are we doing well? Where are we're really sort of meeting the moment. So asking ourselves, where are we now? And then starting to anchor the change within the context of your mission and your culture.
And values.
There are opportunities in spite of all of the things we're seeing that are very challenging. There may be opportunities to really do some more digging into what are the values of your organization, and what are the things that are non-negotiables for you. And then when you're making the change, make sure that you're thinking about it not just in the rational, but the emotional case, and giving people time to process that. So when I was asking you to take your hand and to make it warm, and then to think about the dissipation, that also is what you want to think about with your teams. How do you dissipate some of that emotional energy, or help people to discharge it? We want to be clear as we communicate the vision, and we need to be honest. I want to be really upfront about that. We need to be honest about what we know, what we don't know, because very often when people don't have honest and authentic information, they start making stuff up in their head. It's, years ago it was with kids, wait till your father gets home. And it's like, what's going to happen? I don't know. And that anxiety that comes from the not knowing.
I would add here, when Yvette was talking earlier about working and the staff saying, you got to close your door because you're making us anxious. If there's not a level of trust, closed doors, for example, can be, what are they doing in there? What are they saying? Why aren't they letting me know? So you want to try to balance, and that's why being honest is really the starting point. You have to think about what is appropriate for you to share. Sometimes there are personnel issues that you can't share, but you don't want to blue sky it particularly, or lie about the state of things. If you're going to lose funding, you're a food bank and you've lost funding, that is a fact. Back to you.
I'm thinking, Brigid, when you said that, there was a point in one of the organizations that I ran where we did need to downsize. And we used to have these closed door executive meetings. And the staff's like, we don't know what you're doing. We want to know what you're doing. I'm like, all right, you know what? You can come to the meeting and maybe you have ideas. And very quickly people are like, no, I don't want to go there. It's like, thanks for inviting me, but no thanks. I'll go do something else. So you also want to normalize the resistance. It makes total sense that if you're asking me to do something new in a new way, I mean, we are in this field because we care. That's how you get here. You get here because you have a strong sense that we need to be engaged in helping each other. And we need to be able to normalize that. No, I don't want to change the way I do it. I like the way I do it. This is the way we've always done it. And then engage early and often. So again, the people feel like they're staying up, they're keeping the information, they know what's going on. And think about yourself. You know, when was the time that you were in a situation where people were holding information that you felt you should have had? You know, that you may not have been the leader in a particular place. And then to continue to assess and adapt as you go. In this particular case, you really want your line staff to be able to give real feedback. And we might not like the feedback they're giving us, but that feedback's going to help us make a decision, and probably multiple decisions. And then finally, just to engage. Talk about how you're feeling. You know, again, but this comes back to the self-regulation. Probably not a good idea to have a conversation with your staff and burst into tears. Probably not a good move. But it might be a good move to have that conversation with other leaders, have that conversation with the board that you're working with. But also that self-regulation is going to be real, because they're going to use they're going to use that as the measure of what's happening or not happening. So what we want to do is move you into small groups.
We do, but Yvette, I want to add one
Go
more
ahead, Brigid.
thing.
Yeah, go for it.
As you go, supportive staff is really, really important. That as people, what support can you give, given the financial constraints that you're under? What kind of support might you be able to give your staff? Whether that's time with, if you have clinical staff, or you know, just time for people to talk and process, whatever it might be, a little extra time to go home early. There are things that you can do to help your staff feel like they are not just chess pieces who are being moved in a time of change.
And Brigid, you make a really good point. Some organizations, what they've done is they actually have changed their work hours. So that staff do have more time just to sort of help themselves regulate.
Yeah.
So that may be something that, you know, that you might consider. There are also organizations that are, you know, sort of saying to staff that we need to, you know, we have to change some of the caseloads because we know that you are already you're already going to burnout before this happened. What does that look like? But also communicating with your community, the communities that you serve, because they also may have ideas of how they might be able to participate as the changes are happening, because it's going to directly impact them, and they're going to have ideas and thoughts.
Yeah.
So one of the things they talked about is having a different message for different groups, having a discussion and plan before breaking news, share more internally than externally, share with employees based on their tiers, and be clear to all the parties in advocacy. Oh, I'm going to highlight that one. Because the other part is our staffs can be engaged in advocacy. It doesn't just have to be you. And then advocacy advance, have a plan, commitment to mission you talked about, order in communication issues, and then clarity. What don't you know? Be honest, be reassuring, regular updates, be available for questions, to be able to talk about the funding priorities, what's stable and what's not, what are the core programs, including staff and stakeholders in the planning, and holding space for managing emotions, impact, shock, and grief. Our group 2 had staff morale and focus, or identity, organizational identity. Does the mission change? And then we had clear and transparent, unexpected nature. So being able to talk about it, what are the implications, and expressing gratitude. And this also is going to be really important as you think about how your teams are showing up. Honesty again, sharing the disappointment at all levels, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, being mindful of the timing of news, and then ongoing updates, regular intervals, certain opportunities you talked about, consult with experts on best practices. What we're finding is that we're now starting to run coaching groups for executive directors so that executive directors can come together, get ideas from each other, but also a place for them to be vulnerable, which very often that does not happen. So really seeking out coaching opportunities and doing that as a group or as an individual, because it's important that you are feeling safe. Concerns over job security, preservation, what the organization to show the staff that it's worth it, and then identifying key issues. So what we will be doing is we will send this list out to everyone, and we'll probably be doing some adding to it as well, so you have it. I know in one of the sessions that I dropped into, it was like, okay, we know these things to do, but we don't know what else to do. It's okay to say you don't know. It makes you human. It makes you real. And very often people appreciate you being a real human being and not an autotron. So I'm going to put the first thing is to be able to identify what the vision is. And it may be you have a vision for certain parts of your organization and you may not have it for other parts of the organization. There may be aspects of what you do that you spin off or you take in from another organization. Be compassionate when you're listening, and that means giving full attention. It's not you're on the phone, you're typing, you're doing 12 other things. This is a time you do not, I love that, Chris, I saw that smile. This is the time you do not want to multitask, because multitasking tells me I'm not important. Really turn around and be present. Active engagement. This is where sometimes the open door, and this is why it's really important you're connecting to other people so you can pick that phone up and say, that's okay. Your own willingness to adapt, and then also being able to stay mission centered. I meet with a group monthly of CEOs and we have lunch together. There are about 6 of us. And no matter how crazy it is, we realize that that is the thing that keeps us sane. So create your own network of other CEOs, and maybe you get together for 45 minutes in the morning or some other time. And I encourage you to be present with each other, not just on Zoom, but to really be in space with each other, because that's where very often we get that energy to go back and do our jobs. And, we didn't do it for 2 months. And then we realized that while none of us had time, we realized that without doing it, we actually were doing a disservice to ourselves. And it made us not as resilient when we came back into our organizations. Do you want to take that down, Bridge? So, we know this was a very fast overview. Some of this information you have, some you don't, some of it's like, oh, I know this, but now what do I do? And that's why it's important to talk to other folks. They're in the same boat with you. Go ahead, Bridge.
I have 2 things I want to say here. If you sit with other EDs or others who are doing your job and speak with them regularly, it's a really great way to share information. You'll find out things that you didn't think that they're doing. So really, we absolutely encourage that. The other thing that I want to say is that we haven't given tools around strategy. I mean, like strategic planning, but I do want to draw your attention to a tool that was shared by NPQ at its April 24th webinar. If you have a membership to be able, you can look at the webinar. It was fantastic. But The webinar was called The Backlash to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, How Justice-Committed Organizations Can Respond Now. And even if you're not thinking about DEI or DEIB, some of the way that the framing that they did was very helpful. But what I wanted to share was this, which is a strategy triage tool to help you start to think about what's most essential and how to approach it. So
We also will be sending that as part of the follow-up docs. So Deb,
If you are members, so, you know, I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but become a member. There are the learning and networking opportunities such as this one, free job postings, more in-depth help desk assistance, and as I said, discounts to everything that we do. We do, if you are not a member, we do have an offer for you that if you enter Horse, New Jersey, and it should say expires June 16th, not May 16th. The discount code Horse NJ, all one word, not case sensitive. When you go to our membership portal, just enter that and you'll automatically get your 10% discount. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and especially I want to thank Yvette and Brigid for leading this webinar, which is, you know, kind of pushing our boundaries a little bit, but looking at some of the realities and trying to anticipate. I know in the group I was in, we talked about the need for advanced planning and contingency planning ahead of time. So that's a really, you know, very, very good point. It's something for all of us to be looking at. So
Yeah.
thank you all very, very much. And I look forward to seeing you in this space again very soon.
thank you, everyone.
you.
be well.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.